My parents forced me to go live with my grumpy grandmother. I have not seen her in so long. They said they want me out of their house, so I have to go live with her. Well, it turns out she's not so bad, and she let me explore the attic for some very old family pictures, which to my surprise was holding a deep, dark secret. I'm 28 female, live with my parents, and I'm pretty sure my mom resents me for being born. My mom and I never see eye to eye about anything. My dad, however, isn't really present and just sits in the background while my mom and I argue day to day. He's usually 14 shots to the moon, wasted by 4 p.m. every single day. Since he's retired and can never figure out what to do with his life after leaving his 9 to 5. My mom's Stella. That's what I call her. She's never been able to relate with me on a mother-daughter level. She's always just screaming in my face about how I ruined her life and made things harder for her just by existing. I vowed that if I ever had a daughter, I would never say or do the things that my mother's done to me. But that's neither here nor there. The new argument of the week is about my parents wanting me to move in with my bitterly cold-hearted grandmother so that they can use the whole house for a long extended vacation. And what can I possibly do but do what I'm told? It never fails. She's always doing something to hurt me, neglect me, or abuse me mentally. I'd rather she just hit me already. At least then I could heal. But the mental torture she unleashes on me on a daily basis is enough to bring me to my knees. But I swear, I'll find a way to get her back for all the pain and suffering she's put me through. I don't deserve to be treated like a plastic bag. And not even a good plastic bag. I'm like the bag that the cashier gives you with all the little holes in the bottom that eventually tear as you're walking out of the store, spilling all the contents onto the pavement. But I've always said, you can't break what's already broken, and I'm broken, damaged goods. And it's all because of them. You're probably wondering what I've done and what I have against my father, right? Well, he's allowed all the abuse to happen right under his nose. He sees the way she treats me and he does nothing. He just sips on his whiskey and listens to his stupid talk shows. And the kicker is, I don't even know my grandma. The last time I ever saw her, I was 4 years old. My last memory of her was at my grandpa's funeral. After that, I never saw nor heard from her again. So, why my mother sending me there after all these years, I couldn't tell ya. My mother hates my grandma to the core. Whenever they speak to each other on the phone, it's nothing but a screaming match. Nothing new, I suppose, but she would never tell me why I could not see my grandma or where she even was. My mom even lied to me once and told me she died in her sleep and she had her cremated. Then she later told me she made the whole thing up just to get me to stop asking about her. I just wanted to know who she was and why we never saw her. Basically, we really don't have any other family that I'm aware of. It's always just been my parents and me. My mom came up to my room and slammed a suitcase on the floor in front of my bed and said, "You better start packing," and walked out. I packed my stuff angrily and went downstairs. She couldn't even be nice enough to give me a ride. She just gave me an address, written on a sticky note, while we're standing on the front porch, and then walked inside and locked the door. I was furious, but what could I do? She took my only house keys, so I called an Uber and went to Grandma's. When I arrived at her house, I was so wrapped up inside my own head that I didn't even realize that I was actually going to be seeing her for the first time in 24 years. My attitude changed a bit when I walked in the door, saw her sitting in this old ripped-up leather chair. She smiled at me and welcomed me into her home. I was always told how bitter and mean she was, but that's not the person sitting in front of me right now. She offered me some coffee, showed me to my room. She told me I could look around the house and make myself at home. I was shocked by her overall kindness, that I hadn't even noticed that her house was like a mansion. It had so many rooms and things to look at. My mom texted me telling me about how glad she was that I was gone. I hated how much that hurt me, how much I allowed her words to penetrate my mind and my heart. My grandmother told me that if I wanted to learn more about my mom, that there were all sorts of things of hers from back before I was born that were up in the attic that I could sort through. At that moment, I could care less. But then it hit me. What if there was something up there I could use against her just to get back at her, like something really embarrassing? Or, well, I don't know, just anything with shoving her in her face? Now, I was excited and went up to the attic to look around. I had to find something I could use. For all I know, there's something in here that could simply destroy that stupid, bitter smirk on her face from ever happening again. That smirk. Every time she belittles me, she always has that stupid little smirk on her face, like a kid lying to their parents and getting away with it. Except instead of smiling after turning and walking away, she does it straight to your face so you know she knows what she's doing to you. I rummaged through some old dusty boxes and found a photo album, sitting right at the bottom of one of them. I opened it up, and staring back at me was the face of my grandpa. I wasn't expecting that. I noticed he was holding a baby while sitting in the same leather chair my grandmother was sitting in when I got there. I took out the picture to see if there was anything written on the back, and, well, my luck will have it, there it was. In sloppy cursive writings, and I quote, "Papa and baby Jamie." It was me and my grandpa. My heart ached for him, and although my only real memory of him was his funeral, I still missed him and wished I could just have known him better. I just wanted a relationship with someone outside of my parents within my family. A normal, healthy relationship is too much to ask for, I guess. I kept looking through all this stuff and stumbling upon a stack of what looked like old diaries. Each diary had a year written on the cover. They went all the way back to 1992. They were all my mother's. Jackpot. I picked the diary that was a year before I was born and opened it up and started reading. April 23rd, 1999. Today I saw him again. We went to a really cheap motel on the other side of town. I know it's wrong, but I don't care. I want what I want when I want it. And I want him. And she doesn't deserve him. I can make him happy, then we can move away and get married. We have another date on Friday. Bill's starting to get nervous that we'll get caught. He better not say anything, or I swear. I stopped reading in shock. Bill, I whispered, but that's my grandpa's name. It has to be someone else named Bill, surely. I skipped forward a few pages and kept reading. June 25th, 1999. I took a pregnancy test today. It was positive, and I can't believe this is happening. And now Bill wants to come clean to my mother and tell her the truth. I can't let him do it. I have to do something and do it fast. I know what I have to do. I know I can do it. I just can't believe this is where things will end. I was so shocked I dropped the diary on the floor. My mom? And Grandpa? They had an affair. And I quickly realized that the date was within the same month she would have been pregnant with guess who? Me. And she only has one child, and that's me. My grandpa is my dad and my mom. What did she do to stop him? I hurried up and looked through the stack of diaries for the year that my grandpa died and opened it up. I skimmed through each page till I came to a date my grandpa fell ill before he passed. He was fine one second and then all of a sudden severely ill the next and dead the next day, August the 3rd, 2005, and I quote you, "I've made up my mind. I have to get rid of Bill. He's getting too close to Jamie, and every time we're alone he keeps saying he wants to tell my mother about everything. He won't shut up. If I don't do this now, it'll certainly be too late." That was all written on that page, but when I turned to the next, This time there was no date, just a scribbled passage that was unlike all the rest. It looked frantic, sloppy, and it read, "I did it. I put 2 bottles of eye drops in his coffee this morning. He's having symptoms. It won't be long and this'll be over with." Well, I turned the page and there was again no date. Just 2 words written in huge uppercase lettering that covered the entire page. "He's dead." I slammed the diary down and grabbed the other one with the confession about her being with my grandpa before I was born, and I ran downstairs to grandmother, who was sitting in her recliner watching the 12 o'clock news. I yelled, "Grandma!" She jumped up, clearly not expecting me to scream. I sat down and told her that she had to read what I found in my mom's diaries. I showed her the passage, and she just sat there and stared at the last page of this sick family secret she clearly knew nothing about. She must hate me now. I'm the reason her husband was murdered. The thought made me sick to my stomach, and as soon as I was about to apologize and tell her how I would do whatever I could to make this right, she stood up and wrapped her arms around me and held me while she cried bitterly into my sleeves. I held her tightly, and we both wept until there was no tears left to tear. We needed time to grieve. Her for her husband and me for my dad. But now was not the time. There was work to be done. She wasn't going to get away with this, not for a year, not for a month, day, or a second. I told Grandma to get dressed, because we're taking this confession of murder to the police. I called another Uber, and we waited for them to get here, and I had my opportunity to get my revenge, but the cost that had to be paid to get it was overwhelming. Yet in a way, I wasn't that surprised that she had slept with my grandma's husband, her stepfather, and then plotted his murder and carried it out. I wasn't capable of being shocked anymore. I wondered if my dad, well, my stepdad knew about this, or if he was in the dark too. Well, we would find out soon enough. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having a great day. Today's story is a twisted tale. It has multiple updates I've compiled all in one, so we're going to start right now with update number 1. If you want to support me, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel. Here's the update. We arrived back at my grandmother's house and I was mad. How could they not take that confession in her diary seriously? They barely even read through it, they just glanced at it and just handed it back to me. My grandma burst into tears as we were told there was nothing that they could do with the evidence we had or the lack of evidence therefore. I told my grandma that we were going to find the best private investigator out there, and to my surprise she told me that she already knew of one. Her niece, Kelly, told me that she was one of the best and she might be able to help. I didn't even know my grandma had any siblings, let alone a niece. She told me she hadn't spoken to her in about a decade, but that's because of her circumstances. It was worth a chance to give her a call. I got the number for Kelly from my grandmother. I called her. I told her everything we found out, and she was just as shocked as I was when I first read the confession myself. She told me she would be right over, and she wasn't kidding. She was here in 35 minutes. Sat down at the dining table with my grandma and me, and she told us that the plan's going to bring my mom to ruins. Kelly turned towards me and paused, looking me dead in the eyes. I just knew someone, somehow, some way, I was going to be involved in the dirty work from just the look in her eyes as she focused on me. She told me that I was their best bet to get a confession out of Mom. Me? I asked. How could I possibly do that? She shook her head up and down and told me since my mom resented me so much. Yes, I told her about my entire childhood and relationship with Mother. She explained that I could confront her with the diaries in her hand and demand she tells me what happened, but do it so in such a way that I act like I'm beneath her, like I'm just a child again, helpless at her disposal. That way I could stroke her narcissistic ego and let her chastise me one last time with her damaging words of abuse and control. It made so much sense to me at the moment. I could totally do this. After all, I've been her punching bag my whole life. I could easily be the little girl who's crushed under her mother's heavy hand, all the while tricking her into confessing everything just to spite me. I'd wear a wire, and Kelly would be in a vehicle close by just in case it goes south. She'd be listening to everything that was said, and I was really nervous but determined to avenge my father's death. Now was not the time to get timid. It was time to fight. Update number 2. I was going to rip the rug out from underneath her of all her secrets, and they'd come flying out one by one underneath, putting her in her place once and for all. Not only will she lose her freedom, but I will get their house. Come to find out, the house is my grandma's name. She's the one that bought it. So it was her decision who gets the house once they're gone, and my grandma told me that it was rightfully mine. So I texted my mother and told her that I forgot my laptop at the house, and I just need to come over and get it because I need it for work. She texted back and, without skipping a beat, told me that, well, it's too bad. I could go buy a new one. I told her she could not keep me from getting something that belonged to me, or I would have a police officer escort me over just to retrieve it. That got her attention quick, and she gave in and told me, whatever, just don't linger. I lied and told her I would be in and out. She had no idea what was about to come her way. Kelly drove me over there and parked down the block. I walked up to the house, the diaries hidden away in my purse. I knocked on the door and waited for her to let me in. As soon as she opened the door, I walked in and acted like I was about to go upstairs and retrieve my laptop. However, I took a sharp turn towards the kitchen and sat down at the table. My mom came stomping in after me, anger spread across her face. She scolded me for not getting my stuff and leaving. But I just looked at her and slowly reached into my purse and pulled out the diaries and said, "You recognize these?" I stared right into her eyes. She paused and looked at me with the realization flashing amongst her eyes. She quickly hid her true feelings and crossed her arms across her chest and told me, "So what?" I gave her a sheepish look of innocence and asked her if it was true what she wrote. She paused and stared these daggers into my soul I'll never forget, and I quote you, she said, "So, do you want to know the truth?" With her teeth clenched, she said, and she told me everything, even laughing about how my father kept asking for me when he was on his deathbed. I acted like I was terrified of her and just pretended like I didn't care. I let her tear a hole in my chest one last time. This time, though, it was different. I could see her for who she really was. Evil, selfish, bitter, devil, murderer. I just simply told her that I did not believe her and that she's crazy for saying such evil things about Grandpa. She laughed in my face and told me to believe what I want. She killed my father. Update number 3. I left in a rush. I was running down that block back to Kelly's car. She grabbed my hand and told me I did great, and I ripped the wire from my body and handed it to her. She told me she would be taking all the recordings to the station as soon as she dropped me off. I felt relieved and exhausted. My grandma was there waiting at the door when I walked in. She grabbed me by the shoulders and hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, "It's going to be okay." I broke down and cried once again, grieving my father and grandfather. We got a call later that day from Kelly. She told me that an officer was on his way over to my mom's house right now to officially arrest her for the murder of my father. I was finally getting my sweet revenge, and soon it'd be all over. I'll finally be able to rest easy knowing she's been locked away for the rest of her days. It was now just a waiting game. There was a long, extensive investigation, and turns out that my mother completely confessed to the police and signed a statement. She even took a plea deal that gave her 10 years to life in prison, and she had to confess in open court that she did in fact kill my dad. I was thrilled, yet my heart was heavy. My own mother, and to think she blamed my grandma for the whole ordeal. She even treated her like, well, she was the one who committed the murder, and she was at fault my entire life. I was told how cold-hearted and evil she was, and I believed it. But none of that was even true. My grandma and I are closer than ever. I'll never leave her side. I decided to sell the house and move in with my grandma. That way, I really could take care of her. It was the least I could do. I even offered to give her all the money that I made from the sale. However, she refused to take a dime of it. She told me to put it in the bank and spend it all on something that makes me happy. I smiled and thanked her, but I secretly placed the money in an envelope and placed it under her bed. I couldn't possibly take a single penny from her. She deserved to have every single last dollar that came from that house. She deserves to have her husband and daughter that did not betray her. I honestly don't know how long she has left to live her life, but I do know she will never be alone ever again. I will always be there with her till the end. She became the mother I always wanted and needed growing up. I started calling her Mom about a month ago. She really seems to enjoy that. I wish she was my mother. Well, she is, in a way. Our bond is unbreakable. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here for one final update. Update number 4, titled Tragedy Struck. Hey guys, another update. Grandma's been in the hospital for 2 weeks now. The doctors say it's her kidneys. Renal failure is what they call it. She has to do dialysis 2 to 3 times a week now. It's really taking a toll on her. I've only had 3 years with her to spend time and make memories. Some of them are so painful, yet I will not change the way it's brought us together. They say she needs a kidney transplant. Well, I got tested to see if I could possibly be a donor, but I was not a match. Even Kelly got tested to see if she was, but sadly we're not. I've gone online to those donor websites and have emailed potential donors and told them about my grandmother and our backstory, trying to get someone to help, but I've only received one reply, and they weren't a match. I'm so scared to lose her. She's been my first real healthy, loving, motherly relationship that I've desperately prayed for as a child growing up, and now she may not be around for much longer. I received a call in the middle of the night. My grandma passed in her sleep. I was broken. I was bitterly in my bed, just weeping. The next morning, I received another phone call. It was a lawyer who was contacting me about Grandma. He had to tell me something about her will. He told me she had a very large number of assets to her name, and she left it all to me in her will. I was shocked, once again, and after I swore I would never be able to be shocked again, she dropped me to my knees. $300,000? Mine? She made sure my future would always be secure even when she passed. She made me feel so safe when I was with her. How could I expect anything less? I had to go to the lawyer's office across town to sign the paperwork, and I was less than ready to go, but I knew it was important. Grandma would not want me to lay here just sulking. She would want me to get up, get dressed, go to the office, take her precious gift, and use it to help others who have also suffered abuse and possible neglect at the hands of their own parents, and I'll do just that. And I'll do it in her memory. Maybe I'll even start a nonprofit organization to help abused children. She would approve of that. I hope I can make her proud and make sure that none of this was all for nothing. I will always remember the moment I first saw her when I walked into her home. She welcomed me with open arms. Rest in peace, Grandma. I love you. There's a lot of great people who could come together to make my nonprofit happen, and I'll make it work. This was one of those stories that just take a complete turn. I did not see that coming at all. But I want to hear from you guys because the comment section of this one was bonkers. People were going nuts saying, oh my gosh, poor grandma, this entire time she was looked like the bad guy, when in reality it was not the case. So go ahead and drop your thoughts about this story in the comment section. Let's discuss it, guys. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day, animate them, and put them on here for you guys to watch. If you're bored, want to pass by some time, stop on by, see what we're doing today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. Remember, the best way to support me is super simple. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Guys, I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. And remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.